Good. And Dave, we do have another person registering.
Okay. All right. We ask what agenda item they want to speak on before I get started.
Yep.
Or,
5FNG.
5F.
So same items here.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. That's the one we'll move up. All right. Seeing it's 5:30, we'll call to order the meeting of the Fitchburg Board of Public Works for March 20th, 2023, held in Francis Huntley Cooper Council Chambers. Attending tonight myself, chairing the meeting virtually. In Council Chambers, Alder Jim Wheeler, Michael Granetsky, and Board Member Dave Wilborn. Public appearances for non-agenda items, we do not have any. So it's time I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the March 6th meeting.
I so move we approve the minutes of March 6th meeting.
Okay. Any questions, comments, changes? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of approval of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are opposed. The minutes are approved. Next, report from the Department Head, Director of Public Works, Mr. Tim Volker.
Thank you. For the record, Tim Volker, Director of Public Works, City Engineer. I guess I'll start with some staff updates. We hired an environmental engineering intern who will be starting this summer for us. The utilities engineer position was posted last week. As you recall, at the last meeting I had mentioned Tracy Foss has been promoted to the Assistant Public Works Director position, and that will be effective April 3rd. So we posted her current position last week. The transportation engineer position still remains open. We're having discussions internally, kind of brainstorming what we want to do there to get some more interest in that position. And then also last week, Friday, I was made aware that our part-time stormwater engineer will be leaving us. Ryan's last day will be March 31st. Ryan's accepted a full-time position with the City of Madison, so we'll be looking to post that stormwater engineer position shortly. Next up is some project updates. I'll start with the Sain Road reconstruction project. Construction on the Sain Road project is anticipated to begin again April 2nd. The initial stage will close the road, Sain Road and Lacey Road intersection. It's going to be a full closure with a detour. And while that intersection's closed, the Sain Road and East Sherrill Parkway intersection will remain open. Work on the Lacey Road and Sain Road intersection is anticipated to be complete mid to late May 2023. And then once that intersection reopens, the intersection of Sain and East Sherrill will be closed for work with a detour. And then also when the work with Sain Road and Lacey is going on, simultaneously the railroad will be doing work to the crossing on Lacey there. And then also in April, tree clearing will begin for the Lacey Road project between Fitchburg and Seminole Highway. So look for that to start here shortly within the next couple weeks. And then with that, does anyone have any questions?
Tim, it's not a question, it's more a comment. We've had a number of issues with our wells in the last 2 years, and I think maybe Tracy, maybe you assigned this to Tracy, even though she's not the water engineer. But we would like at some time at one of our council of the wholes, if we could go through all our well, kind of our infrastructure, show the well, when it was built, maybe its capacity, and kind of where it's located, and go through our roughly dozen dozen wells, so council members have a better idea, where our water supply resources are. So I don't know when they'll be, when we'll get it for a council, the whole agenda. I just want to give you a little heads up that that's something we'd like to, educate council a little more on. So.
Absolutely. So did you want that at the committee of the whole or
Committee of the whole, yeah.
Okay.
Committee of the
Committee of
whole,
the
yeah.
whole.
The Wednesday once a month, and I don't know when, Tim.
Okay.
I'll have to, once we get a new council president, we'll have to talk to him and see when they'd like to have that.
Okay, so I'll hold off till I hear back from
Yes.
you? Okay. Will do.
Let me get you a date, and let me get you a date. The other question I had: are we, has our street sweepers started yet, or is it still been too cold? I think.
No, I actually saw him out this morning, first thing this morning, cleaning Lacey Road. So it has started.
Okay, good to hear. I'll let my neighbors know. Anyone else have a question for Tim? Just speak up. Seeing none, all right, then we'll move on. We're on to our agenda items. Michael, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to move agenda item 5F, resolution R61-23 to the first item that we discussed tonight.
Second.
You have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. Discussion.
Actually, sorry. Go ahead.
Someone want to say something?
No, I was just going to say, nope, I was going to say we'll discuss after we move it to the top first.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, just on the amendment here. All in favor of the amendment to move the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Our agenda is amended, so that takes us, first agenda item we have is, hang on here. I have to move my screen here a little bit. Bear with me. Dealing with the technically incompetent as usual. All right. So first agenda item, we have resolution R6123 approving change order with AE2S for the contract for services for the Seminole Glen stormwater study. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Gronetsky. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion seconded. I'd like to give Joyce and Mr. Haith opportunity to speak at this time. So maybe Joyce, maybe you could go first, and then David, you can go next. All right. So ready whenever you want to unmute yourself, Joyce. There you go.
Okay. Thank you. I just have a question about the, actually a couple of things, but I was wondering why in the resolution there was a call to cancel the second community meeting, and I was wondering what the reasoning for that would be.
Okay. I'll weigh in, and then I'll let Tim.
Okay.
Okay, having gone through a number of these, Joyce, what I find these meetings, it ends up being me and the stormwater engineer and very few people attending. Now, I don't anticipate that, this is a much more visible project, but I think we found that two meetings is usually satisfactory. Tim, any comments there?
Yeah, Joyce, the original scope included 3 meetings for this feasibility study. One meeting's already taken place, a second one's upcoming, so we kind of felt a third one is redundant for a feasibility study. As we complete the feasibility study and move into design, we'd also have additional public information meetings during that time. So we felt 3 during the feasibility phase of the project was a bit much.
Do you have some follow-ups, Joyce?
So could you just So on the last meeting of the feasibility stage, is that I mean, what is going to happen at that last meeting? What are the items that would be covered at that time?
Tim, can you field that?
Yeah, I believe that, the next meeting's going to go over kind of the completed feasibility study report. Basically, there's two concepts, what I understand. So that would be discussed in detail, and also basically which alternative is going to be selected. And then, from there, the city would go into the design of the selected option. So I was not a part of the first meeting. I believe there were originally three concepts, but one was removed. I don't know if that was removed during the meeting or sometime after the meeting. Joyce, do you know that, or were you at the first meeting?
I can see that within this resolution, it has been, it is marked out. So completely. There are several parts of concept 1 and concept 2 marked out, and concept 3 is marked out completely.
Yeah, and that was part of the change order. Some additional modeling's required. So, they were removing the third public information meeting and then doing some additional modeling kind of as a swap. So there's no additional cost associated with any of this work. Just a reduction in the public information meeting by 1 from 3 to 2, and then also some additional modeling work would be completed for concepts 1 and 2.
Okay, so let me fully understand, and I apologize, but so are you tonight in this resolution accepting the change order, the contract change order? That's what this is for?
Correct.
This resolution? Okay, so within that change, within that, it is deleting parts of the two concepts and removing completely the third concept.
Correct.
So okay, that's fine. So the next meeting, the next public meeting, then you're saying that there will be two concepts discussed with the community, and the community at that time will have input into which of the two concepts will be chosen?
Yes, so at the completion of this project, which is the feasibility study, the second and final public meeting will be held, correct?
That's okay. But at that time, is the decision already made as to which concept will be chosen? When does that happen?
So the study, at the completion of the study, there will be a selected alternative between the consultant and the city, and that will be discussed at the final meeting so that the public can still provide input. We're going to have a recommendation to the public at that meeting and to hear feedback on that selected alternative, so that the public still has an opportunity to make comment on the selected concept at that second and final meeting.
Okay. Who who selects the concept?
It'll be the city and the consultant AE2S working on this project, the two of us.
The city being you?
Public Works, yes.
The Board of Public Works? This board?
Well, we have a staff member, an environmental engineer, working with the consultant on this.
So Ben?
Ryan, I believe, is the manager on this, and Ben works closely with Ryan.
Okay. And Ryan is leaving?
Yes, Ryan is leaving at the end of this month. So Ben will be taking this over.
Okay.
I would just add, Joyce, it's typical, you know, we always want to bring a recommendation, you know.
Certainly.
We look at it and, you know, we feel this is the best interest of the project, but, you know, we're there to listen too. You know, I'm not saying, I would never say anything is a done deal, you know, but that's why we have these meetings to listen to the public, but we try to make a recommendation, you know, that's our professional staff, you know, they're charged with doing that.
Certainly, and I know you have more things to talk about, and I probably used the 3 minutes, and I apologize, but I still so okay. I am just confused a little bit about how the outcomes come to be, because at the meeting the very first meeting that we have, it was just an introductory meeting and no detail was given. So, I mean, I was at that meeting and I truly got nothing out of it. I mean, as far as detail. Yes, I know. I'm not even really sure what the scope of the entire project is, because it was unclear in the presentation that the lady gave, you know, and she was saying that more is to come. Well, now you're saying more, all of that will happen behind the scenes and then it'll come to the community with the recommendation already made. Is that?
Yeah, and Joyce, typically the first public meeting is, you know, we hold early on, and that's, you know, held during the investigation and data gathering phase of the project. So, you know, typically at that time, we don't know much detail. So we're still gathering the data and investigating whatever problem we're looking at and gathering all the facts to come up with a solution. So I can have a staff member follow, you know, Ben or Ryan follow up with you and provide more detail of where they're at right now and talk to you about it. And then if that's acceptable for you, or
sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Joyce.
Okay, well,
Mr. Hayes, would you like to speak?
First, I'm sorry to hear that Ryan is leaving. He is a talented and knowledgeable engineer. So, you know, what I've heard is similar to some of the issues I have. It'd be great to have the project plan in hand. You know, what are the tasks? What's the scope? What's the project? That would answer a lot of these questions that we have, I think, the community. So if you can do that, that would be terrific. So I just want to make sure that this does not include the Schumann storm sewer issues. Those are a separate SIP that's not funded for this year. This is, to my understanding, as it was put through, being heavily involved, that this is only within the Seminole Glen Park issue, which is independent of the storm sewer issues. The DNR is going to have to get involved because it's a wetland. It's not being restored. Its status is somewhat unclear, but there have been a number of unlawful actions taken by the city that have caused some of these problems. So we're going to have to get the DNR involved. And there are a number of things that much of the RFP is work that I submitted to the city, and I haven't seen any information on a number of those issues. I'll call Ryan and talk specifically about those. So I want to make the point that this is much more than just a hydrologic restoration. It's really the restoration of the integrity of the ecosystem of the park, because it is an environmental corridor, which is part of what the area-wide water quality plan is required by the Regional Planning Commission and by the DNR. And the rules of the Regional Planning Commission are that the installation of stormwater facilities into the park and our MS4 permit both state that neither the installation nor the discharges from the MS4 may harm any of the protected functional values of the wetland. And I guess finally, just want to make sure that we make the point, and this will come up in the next issue, that the Seminole Glen Greenway, by ordinance, is owned by the stormwater utility. What does that mean? That means that the stormwater utility has and exercises all the ownership rights that have accrued and are applicable to the city. And I only mention that because when I talked to Ryan briefly on the phone about a month ago, he talked about consulting with the Parks Department about what was acceptable to them to do in this space. Well, the reality is that the space is controlled under the ordinance by the stormwater utility, and any recreational use, including park usage, is only allowed by explicit permission of the stormwater utility and only under the Regional Planning Commission rules if it's compatible with and does not harm the stormwater utility or natural ecological functions of the environmental corridor. So just kind of making those points publicly, and I'll talk to Ryan and see if I can get a hold of the project plan, because that would answer a lot of questions for a lot of people. You know, I come here representing a lot of people in the neighborhood. I've accepted a lot of the responsibility because it is a highly technical issue. And so I'm kind of interfacing between you people, the city, and those neighborhood people. And it would be great for me to have a document that I could give to them and say, here's what's actually happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haith. Okay. Questions from the board members? Okay. Seeing none, we'll call a vote. All in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Joyce and David, thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate your input. Next on the agenda, we have resolution R 5523, authorizing the 2023 stormwater maintenance dredging bid. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Gronetsky. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Wheeler. Tim, as I read this, there were I think there were approximately 7 ponds on there, but I believe this is just for 2, the Gunflint and Red Arrow. Is that correct?
Yeah, originally it was the base bid included 2 ponds, and with what Speedway Sand and Gravel originally submitted a base bid of $209,000 and $209,400. There was still some money available to do a third pond, so it was set up for a total of 7 ponds, and 2 being in the base, and then 5 of those ponds being an alternate, depending, which would allow the city to pick and choose, if the base bid came in low. So we were able to do the Chapel Valley West Pond in addition to the Red Arrow and Gunflint Trail ponds. So a total of 3 ponds will be done for $378,730, and that includes a 10% contingency.
What was the, in staff's determination of what ponds? Can you go through the methodology? Are they measuring the depth of the pond versus original design? Can you just say just a short bit on that, Tim?
Yeah, so city staff goes out and does an annual inspection, and they look at available records and look at the stormwater utility maintenance plan and exactly what you said, kind of measure the depth of the sediment that's built up since these ponds have been, constructed, and, based on what their findings are out in the field, they rank them and determine which ponds should be maintained that year.
Okay. One more question. What are the dredging? Are they just able to take it to a landfill? What's the process? Not that I really care. I think it's their responsibility, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, the city could keep the material if we wanted, but typically we have the contractor haul it off to a permitted and regulated landfill site. Typically, we don't have a use for the dredging material, so the contractor typically hauls it off for us.
Okay, sounds good. Michael, Dave, Jim, questions on this?
Nope.
Seeing none? Okay, we'll call the vote. All in favor of resolution R 5522 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next resolution R 6723 authorizing the 2023 through 2025 Stormwater Utility Vegetation Management Program contract. We have a motion to approve.
I so move we approve resolution R-67-23.
Moved by Wilborn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. It looks like you're using, this is a 3-year contract, and we're using previous money that wasn't spent. Am I on the right one? But, Tim? Or is it just a?
Yeah, I believe that the city hasn't, last couple years, hasn't done the vegetation management program for our stormwater facilities. So we rolled the money from previous years into this year and then also had money budgeted. So it's looking to kind of catch up and then also do what we had originally planned for this year. And Heartland Ecological Group was the low bid for this project. And, they've done work for the city. They've also currently are doing Terra Vesta for the developer. And per the developer's agreement, we're taking over Terra Vesta. So it'd be a nice, transition because they would still remain on that project for us. So they're familiar with it and, know the city and has worked well with staff.
They're a somewhat local firm out of Mount Horeb.
I believe so.
Yeah. I have no question about it. One thing, a comment I'd like to make to you, Tim, and I spoke to Ryan and Ben about this, is, we get these established. I'd really like, and Mr. Haith would probably agree with this, when we get these stormwater maintenance facilities with the vegetation, I like to get something where, like a neighborhood adopts it and they take care of, keeping the invasives out, or, they kind of adopt it as part of their neighborhood. And easier said than done. Most people don't even want to do their own yard work, but that's something, we have a lot of citizens that are very vested in the ecology of our city. And so it's a program I'd like to get pilot or see if we can get it set up, but I'll stop there and open this up to the other board members for questions. Seeing none, okay. Call the vote. All in favor of resolution R-6723 authorizing stormwater utility vegetation management contract signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next, resolution R 6223, accepting second amendment to the library chiller replacement contract with Strand Incorporated. We have a motion to approve.
I move approval.
Moved by Wheeler. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. So Tim, as I understand this is to help kind of oversee the installation of the equipment planned for this. And I don't have a problem with the amendment. I'm sorry, this isn't fair to you, but you know, as I read through, like the first amendment was to help figure out, you know, what equipment, you know, what we want to do. And I thought, well, what did we get for the original budget? And, it's a little unfair to you. I don't expect you to know the answer, but you know, as you read it, it looks like we gave them an amendment, and I'm not sure what they did originally. Maybe they probably analyzed the existing system and saw it was insufficient. As my guess, but.
Yeah, my understanding that the First Amendment, I don't think the procurement and bid documents were originally included in the original scope. So,
Okay.
And that may have been, you know, previously Public Works wanted to do that in-house.
Okay.
But maybe due to staff, they determined Strand would best be suited for that. Then the Second Amendment, which is in front of you tonight, is for a contingency plan. And basically that's if, you know, that what happened is the equipment, the actual chiller itself, there's a long lead item. So, you know, we procured it already. We purchased the equipment, but, you know, it's several months out. So if something were to fail between now and then, we want Strand to kind of have a contingency, come up with a contingency plan for us, whether that be a temporary chiller that we haul in, or just so that, you know, the system doesn't go down or heating doesn't go down. So that's what this Second Amendment is for.
Okay, thank you. You know, now that you mentioned it, it makes sense about the procurement and it's my gray cells are
Yeah.
moving a little bit, and I think you're exactly right.
And the long lead time on the equipment was unanticipated. You know, it's something we didn't know until we actually put it out to bid and talk to, you know, the manufacturer. So that's something the city found out kind of late in the game.
Okay.
Tim, my question on these are always going to be, what can we do in the future to prevent these sorts of things from happening?
As far as the equipment wise, or as far as kind of the amendments?
The amendments?
Yeah, it's really, you know, kind of sitting down at the beginning of the project and really thinking it through on what we want to do and what we don't want to do. What was probably hard is the, you know, talking to the manufacturer maybe more early on to find that out. You know, we could have said, hey, we need a contingency plan too. And then as far as, you know, the First Amendment, you know, that's just us determining, you know, do we want Strand to do it or do we want to do it in-house type of thing. But yeah, I think just sitting down before starting the project and really thinking it through to kind of minimize these change orders, I agree.
All right. Yeah, you know, not that I ever get beat up in council, but you know, they're looking, you know, we had a lot of change orders on things and they've been justified, but I'm willing to spend a little more upfront to try to address things and foresee the contingencies moving forward. So, okay. Any other questions on this? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of resolution R 6223, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, resolution R 6523, authorizing the First Amendment to the offer to purchase remnant land, Outlot 2, certified survey map 16005 at Ocella Drive and Fish Hatchery Road, and approve the partial release from subdivision improvement agreement. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move approval.
Moved by Wheeler. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. So this one, as part of the redevelopment, the city purchased approximately 2 acres. It was roughly $10,000 or $10 a square foot. And there's a small portion of that that the credit union would like to purchase from us, and for their parking lot, they're just asking that be released from having to this subdivision improvement agreement. So Tim, can you add to this?
Yeah, originally, as part of the Fitch Hatchery Road construction project, the city had acquired some land, and then as we moved through the development of that project, Outlot 2 was never needed. So the UW Credit Union approached the city to purchase this Outlot 2, which the city previously approved, I believe, back in 2022. And then what this resolution's doing is just kind of extending the deadline for closing, and like Dave mentioned, just the releasing them from the requirements of the subdivision improvement agreement.
So they're paying, they're paying same price for the square foot that we did when we acquired it. So we're not giving this away.
Yeah, correct. The city's losing no money.
Yeah. Any questions on this one? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of resolution R 6523, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next, we have resolution R 5923, approving third amendment to the Crescent Crossing subdivision improvement agreement. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Granetsky. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wilborn. This one looks like there is it's right across the street from my office, but the stormwater pond that is being moved as part of the development, and they want to be, the pond is going to be relocated, and they would like a release of that spot for the fees for the stormwater or the required work for a stormwater pond. Am I correct, Tim?
Yeah, correct. The Lacey Road reconstruction project will be reconfiguring this pond that is part of Crescent Crossing. So due to that reason, Crescent Crossing approached us to release them from the maintenance, since the pond's going to be reconfigured here shortly with the start of the Lacey Road reconstruction project.
Does the, I suppose we would, the Lacey Road project, we don't have future maintenance in there. That's just gonna be the expense for the pond maintenance will just be absorbed by the stormwater utility. Is that correct?
Yeah, it'd fall under the previously approved Heartland contract.
Okay.
So, maintenance of this pond, in a future year would fall under the annual maintenance, vegetation maintenance that the city performs.
Okay. Thank you. Board members, questions for Tim?
No, but, looking at this one as well, I'd kind of echo Dave's comments before of looking at future city policy on where these vegetation areas are and seeing if there's greater ownership of these areas by the neighborhoods themselves. A great example would be Quarry Vista on the west side here. We maintain our own stormwater retention areas.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate the comment. Dave or Jim, any questions on this one?
Nope.
Okay. Call the vote. All in favor of resolution R 5923, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have Resolution R 5223, approving revisions to the policies and procedures for special assessments and approving increases in stormwater utility rates. And Tim, I will turn this one over to you. I don't have a firm grasp on this. I think I'd fumble around with it here.
So the special assessment was originally adopted by the city back in 1997, and the cost of curb and gutter replacement was initially assessed at 100% to the adjoining property owner. And then back in 2009, that charge was reduced to 60%. And then I believe in 4 years later, 2013, that charge was further reduced, or I guess was just the first 40 feet of curb and gutter was charged to the adjoining property owner. And now what the city's looking at doing is to charge it to the stormwater utility, as the curb and gutter conveys stormwater to the storm system. So that this is just for the replacement of existing curb and gutter. So if the city were to go onto a street that does not have curb and gutter and look to, make an urban section out of that roadway, that the adjoining property owners would still be assessed for that. But if it was an existing curb that the city's looking to replace, it would be paid for by the stormwater utility. And then the stormwater utility, the city has historically replaced, I believe it's $50,000 a year in curb and gutter. So the city figured out, based on $50,000 a year, the quarterly increase per ERU is 82 cents for the stormwater utility. And that would be for the urban stormwater rates.
So Dave,
Go ahead.
first thing is, do we need a motion on this guy?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
All right,
We
I'll
have
make
a motion to approve. I'm sorry. We have a motion
not a
to approve Resolution R 6223.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Second by Wheeler. Okay. All right. I'm sorry, guys.
That was a second by Wilbur.
Second by Wilburn. All right. Thank you. Thank you for the correction. Tim, the comment I'd have.
Oh, Dave,
is,
hold on 1 second.
Pardon me?
Well, you
We
can
got-
go ahead, Dave.
We got
You'll
public
clear up my
comment
question.
here.
Okay. All right. I didn't realize we had.
Yeah, so I'm confused also. So if presumably, right, the stormwater utility has ownership rights to the curb and gutter, which is why it's assigned. So if the stormwater utility is being charged for the costs, and now they're not being charged for the costs, that's a wash, because there will be no revenue coming in and no costs going out. So in that case, there shouldn't be a stormwater fee increase. If the stormwater utility was getting the revenue but not getting the costs, well, that was a problem in the first place. And so it's not clear to me what exactly is happening here. If they're, if you're going to move the costs to a general fund, then that costs are gone from the stormwater utility budget, and it should be a wash. There shouldn't be a need to increase the fees. So on the other hand, if you're going to use the stormwater fees to pay for a specific section of curb and gutter, then that's a violation of the general principle of assigning costs to, or assigning fees and costs to the actual instance of the cost being borne by the stormwater utility. And it shouldn't be spread over the entire rate base. So I guess I'm confused about exactly what the situation is here. I'll just listen now. For the
Yeah,
rest of the time.
I think I can maybe summarize that real clear. Tim, what is the problem we're trying to solve?
So with our roadway projects, when we receive federal funding, we typically can't assess properties with those because of the federal funding. So like the curb and gutter, it's something we can't assess to the property owner. So it's borne by the city. With it too, there's additional administrative costs with staff time and with that. So with the stormwater utility paying for it, it helps out. It's a lot easier process. The city budgeted $50,000 each year to do these changes, and like it conveys the stormwater is why we felt it was better paid for by the utility versus assessing the property owner.
So the property, and we've had this conversation, and I'm not advocating one way or another, but the argument before the board is always when we do these curb and gutter replacements, it's the property owner who's benefiting. And so if we're going to look at this conceptually, we're spreading that cost over all of the citizens of Fitchburg for these curb and gutter replacements that benefit these singular owners.
Well, at some point, your curb and gutter would get replaced.
Indeed.
It's not a one-time cost either. So when you go in with the assessment, you're not getting, hit up for thousands of dollars at that time. It's a lot easier to stomach, 80 cents a quarter over however many years when you're also, there is a benefit to that. It's not hitting the pocketbook all at one time.
Sure. Yeah, and again, I'm not advocating one way or another. I'm just trying to kind of understand the pros and cons here.
So right now, under our existing policy, Tim, say the curb and gutter in front of my house deteriorates. It has to be replaced. I can choose to do it myself at my own cost, or the city will do it and charge me 50% of the cost. Does that sound right?
I believe that,
yeah,
the current, it's 40. Let me just pull up the old resolution. So it was Resolution R86-13 amended the charge to just the first 40 feet of curb and gutter is what would get assessed to the property owner. So, if it's, I'm just throwing out a cost here, for number purposes, say it's $100 a foot and it's 40 feet, it's going to be $4,000 that the property owner would need to come up with.
Yeah. I'm
at one time.
Okay.
Currently, where what we're looking to do now is instead of coming up with $4,000 and your curb needs to be replaced quarterly, you would just see an 82-cent increase on your stormwater rate.
Yeah, I see what you're trying to do, and it surface seems to make sense. I've always been opposed to, many people come before the board and it was some project, and it's always, well, the city should pay for it. And I've always resisted, because in the long run, I think individuals, should pay for their own things. The other argument I would make, Tim, is certainly stormwater is conveyed along there, but that is not the only reason for the curb and gutter. It enhances the property, and also it makes the road holds up significantly better having a curb and gutter. So it's not the sole focus. I guess I'm interested in what the other board members think about this one.
If I could get an okay, I have a brief comment that maybe would help.
Can we take one more comment, Dave?
Sure can.
So the stormwater utility fee, it's really there's two components. So there's the roughly 50%-ish that's directly related to the runoff from your property. And then there's the infrastructure part, which is the other 50%. But the infrastructure is meant to be generically useful infrastructure for a person. That other 50% should still benefit that person in some way. In this case, a curb and gutter in front of a house is unlikely, or in front of a business is unlikely to benefit those other ratepayers. And to my mind, that is an argument to have it absorbed by the the general revenue budget of the city as opposed to the stormwater utility. It just doesn't seem to fit under that generically available infrastructure for all ratepayers.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. Board members, you have any other comments? It's kind of a complex one.
Yeah, I get the value to public works, and I get the value to the individual homeowners that would be affected in the future. I don't get the benefit to the city as a whole, and I guess that's probably just my biggest point with this one. I get everything. It's just one of those things that this policy seems to have been in place, and yes, it does it does suck when you do get that bill for the curb and gutter, but again, those don't happen very often. The city has taken great strides in making this not 100%, but kind of taking money, putting into that general fund for general things, and then applying it to specific homeowners. That seems where I would tend to draw that line.
Any other comments before we call the vote?
I guess my question is, just by vehicles driving on the road, Tim, does that affect curb and gutter? Does that have any effect of deterioration or?
Yeah, absolutely. Someone could, drive over a curb and gutter and, it could crack and, that leads to an early failure. If a truck or plow hit it, which happens. I mean, a snow plow can hit it and damage the curb, and absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Dave, did you have anything?
No.
Okay. Call the vote then. All in favor of Resolution R 5223, approving revisions to policies and procedures and assessments and approving increases in stormwater rates, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed.
Nay. 2-2, so there's no recommendation on this one. It passed or it didn't fail. So thank you. Appreciate your thoughts on this. Next we have ordinance 2023-06, amending chapter 68 to create 2-hour parking restrictions on a portion of Lacey Road and a no parking section on a portion of Index Road. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Moved by Wheeler. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. Looks like it's we're setting up a 2-hour parking, in front of businesses on Terravesa and no parking for a loading area on Index. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. The only question I had, do we have any other similar restrictions in the city? I'm not aware of any 2-hour restrictions, but I'm quite ignorant on many things as you've come to know.
There's none that I'm aware of. I believe this is the first.
Okay. Did the businesses request this?
Yes, they did.
Okay. All right.
So sad.
I don't have any issue with it. The Index Road, that's in front of a business too, I take it, that the area where he wants no parking there?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Excuse me. I have no objections with this one. I just want to always say whenever we put in new restrictions, that enforcement always seems to be the bigger problem. So just making sure that the Public Safety Committee is on board with this is probably my bigger concern.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Being chair of public safety, I will.
That was a softball headed your way, my friend.
Thank you.
I think he's going to nominate.
Thank you. That's a good. I'll probably chat with the chief about this a little first, but typically these aren't. They aren't a big problem, but
Until they are.
well, they are. Okay, I hear you. All right, any other questions? Okay, we'll call the vote. All in favor of ordinance 2023-0-06, signify by say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. The next Board of Public Works meeting is Monday, April 3rd. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move we adjourn.
Moved by Wilborn, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Tim.